In the photo and video editing world, the term crushing the blacks is really central to adding drama to your photos. And I'd like to explain the term and especially how it can benefit you by making your pictures far more dramatic and more interesting for your viewers. Okay, let's begin. So we're going to use this wonderful beat up VW bug as an example for crushing the blacks in this tutorial. And I took this in San Miguel de Allende, one of my favorite places in the world. And it's in Mexico, by the way, in Guanajuato State. And it's just chock filled with wonderful old VWs like this. I really, really love going there. Now, what we have to do first is take a look at the overall picture. Where is the photo exposed nicely? Well, the exposure on the front of the VW is pretty near perfect. But of course, in a section, the rest is quite dark. Now, when we're doing exposure adjustments, we usually want to have an even exposure in the shadows, highlights, and midtones. However, when we're dealing with something iconic like this VW bug, we actually want the reverse. We want to crush the blacks. And crushing the blacks simply means that the dark areas of the picture get reduced to an extreme amount of darkness, sometimes pitch black, sometimes very close to pitch black. So what we're going to do, and by the way, I'm using Lightroom CC in the horizontal format. I'm using the mobile version, by the way. All we have to do is go to our light tool, and that's signified by a sun. So I'm going to click on that. Now, a lot of people say, well, what do you do first? Do you reduce the blacks right here, or do you reduce the shadows? Both of them will help. However, if I reduce the blacks first, I often find that I'm not really getting what would you say, an organic look that I like. So I would advise, and by the way, this may not make any difference at all, but at least for my workflow, I love to use the shadows first. So I reduce the shadows, and sometimes I go all the way to -100, and then I reduce the blacks, okay? Now I reduce the blacks to the point that I feel is good enough. If I go too far, like this -100, then we lose pretty much everything. I don't really like the -100. So what I'm gonna do is have the shadows at -100 and the blacks at maybe -10 or something like that. Because I still want to see the fact that this is a car. I can see the top, the roof line of the VW, and I can also see a little bit of detail in the back, which actually provides a certain amount of context or foundation. So we don't want to lose everything altogether completely. We just want to, what's called, crush the blacks, bring the dark areas down as much as we want. Okay, so let's take a look at this shot. Here's the original, and here's with crushed blacks. I'm just going to go a little bit further. Let's take these blacks down even more. We'll look at the shot here. Original and the extreme dark areas. Now the goal of this picture is almost like introducing negative space. Now when we think of negative space, we often think about white space. For example, that iconic Japanese crane flowing through a canvas that's pure white. In this instance, we're actually doing the reverse. We have a lot of negative space, but it's black, and that's okay. And that actually draws the attention to the VW, the part that's exposed really well. Okay, so just to keep in mind, the term crushing the blacks, I believe, originated in the video and film editing world. And a lot of photographers have taken that up, and it's part of the photography editing workflow now. And I would just advise you to try this out whenever you have a situation where one part of your photo is illuminated by very bright, direct sun, and the rest of the photo is in shadow, okay? Here's the shadow area. It's okay, but there's a lot of busyness, and we kind of lose that drama, I find, of the VW bug. But here, I really find interesting because my imagination is kicked into gear. You know, I could be thinking, what is over here? What's behind the VW? These are good things that make people stop and think about your photo. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that tip, and if you felt that it was worthy, would you consider sharing it with your friends? I'd love to get this out to as many people as possible to help everyone take better photographs. All the best.